The Susquehanna River moves with a slow, muddy indifference. Beneath its surface lies a graveyard of discarded secrets, but one specific object thrown into these waters in 2005 changed the landscape of American criminal investigations. It was a laptop computer, deliberately stripped of its hard drive, tossed from a bridge by a man who spent his career putting criminals behind bars. This was a calculated act of erasure by someone who knew exactly how evidence is gathered and analyzed. The vehicle sat abandoned in an antique mall parking lot in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, a red Mini Cooper, locked and unremarkable, save that it belonged to Ray Gricar, the highly respected district attorney of Center County. When investigators breached the car, they found no signs of a struggle and no immediate clues. A faint scent of cigarette smoke lingered, along with a cell phone locked inside. The physical scene offered nothing but a pristine silence. Behavioral analysis of a missing persons case typically begins with the victim's state of mind. For a seasoned prosecutor, the profile is complicated by decades of making dangerous enemies. He was a man accustomed to holding the power of the state, a fixture in the courtroom who understood the meticulous construction of a timeline. Yet his final known movements defied the logic of a man taking a day off. He called his girlfriend, and then he simply ceased to exist. The first major fracture in the facade of a routine disappearance came from the riverbed. Fishermen snagged a county-issued laptop in the Susquehanna directly beneath a bridge Gricar crossed. When digital forensics experts pried open the waterlogged casing, they found an empty bay where the hard drive should have been. Removing a hard drive requires specific tools, deliberate effort, and a clear intention to separate the machine from its memory. Finding the missing storage drive became a desperate obsession for law enforcement. Dive teams plunged into the murky currents to scour the river bottom. Days turned into weeks, and the trail goes cold with every passing storm that churns the sediment. The physical search yielded nothing but frustration, leaving investigators to wonder if the most critical piece of the puzzle had been swept away toward the Chesapeake Bay. Months later, a break occurred when someone walking along the riverbank spotted a small, metallic rectangle half buried in the mud. It was the missing hard drive, severely damaged by prolonged exposure to water and silt. The physical deterioration was catastrophic, with the internal platters warped and corroded. Law enforcement shipped the fragile component to elite data recovery specialists, praying that the microscopic magnetic fields had survived the harsh aquatic environment. What the technicians discovered in their sterile laboratories was far more chilling than water damage. The drive had not just been destroyed by the river, it had been systematically annihilated from the inside out. A sophisticated, military-grade wiping software had been deployed to overwrite the data. This was the red thread of the investigation, proof of premeditation. The digital audit revealed a forensic scrubbing designed to defeat the exact recovery tools the FBI was currently using. This revelation fundamentally altered the investigation. The timeline of the erasure proved that the destruction was not a panicked, last-minute decision made on the bridge in Lewisburg. The software had to be acquired, installed, and executed over a period of hours. This calculated digital scrubbing meant the district attorney was preparing for an exit, setting a stage where his most sensitive information would vanish alongside him. We must consider the psychological weight of a man actively erasing his own legacy. A prosecutor knows that a destroyed hard drive looks infinitely more suspicious than an intact one. By choosing to deploy wiping software, he was sending a deliberate message to his colleagues. It was a trade-off made by a legal mind calculating risk versus reward, deciding that the contents of his digital life were too dangerous to survive. The contrast between a voluntary walkaway and a forced disappearance blurs when confronted with this level of technological sabotage. If someone else had intercepted him, why would they go through the slow process of running a secure wipe program? A killer would simply smash the drive. The methodical, time-consuming nature of the software points directly back to the owner. It requires patience and a terrifying resolve to watch one's own history be overwritten. Scraps of secondary evidence began to surface from the home computer. Investigators uncovered internet search queries made in the days leading up to the drive to Lewisburg. The search terms were damning in their specificity, asking how to fry a hard drive and how to physically wreck a laptop. These queries were the digital footprints leading directly to the edge of the Susquehanna River, painting a picture of a man researching his own vanishing act. The shock waves of this premeditation paralyzed the Center County justice system. Active prosecutions were thrown into chaos as defense attorneys questioned the integrity of cases overseen by a man who had just orchestrated a massive destruction of government property. The missing DA had handled murder trials, corruption probes, and sensitive plea deals. Every conviction he touched was viewed through the lens of his inexplicable departure. Despite the clarity of the digital destruction, the physical search devolved into a chaotic mess of false sightings and dead ends. Tips flooded in from across the country, placing the missing man in roadside diners and distant airports. Each lead required resources to track down, only to result in mistaken identities. The noise of public speculation drowned out the quiet truth resting in the forensic laboratory, creating a smokescreen that allowed the trail to freeze entirely. In any standard missing persons case, investigators look for what is left behind to tell the story of the departed. Here, the narrative is defined entirely by what was taken away. The absence of data is not a passive element. It is an active, aggressive barrier constructed by a master of the legal system. The wiped hard drive serves as a locked vault where the combination has been burned. The specific mechanics of the wiping program used on the drive require multiple passes to ensure destruction. It writes random characters over every sector of the disk, then repeats the process up to 7 times to eliminate any ghost images left by the magnetic platters. This level of extreme digital forensics countermeasures is rarely seen outside of espionage. For a county prosecutor to employ it suggests a secret so profound it warranted treating his laptop like national security. Decades of staring into the darkest corners of human behavior leave a mark on a prosecutor's psyche. Ray Gricar had spent his life evaluating motives, dissecting alibis, and watching perpetrators try to cover their tracks. He knew every mistake a fugitive makes. If he chose to walk away, he had the foundational knowledge to do it perfectly. He knew exactly how the police would search for him and trace his finances. The terrifying realization for the detectives working the case was that they were investigating one of their own, a ghost who knew their playbook intimately. Every time they anticipated a move, they found that the path had already been neutralized. The destroyed hard drive was merely the opening gambit in a chess match played against an opponent who had already left the board. They were deciphering a masterclass in evasion. This investigation forces a confrontation with the limits of modern technology. We live in an era where we believe everything is recoverable, that the digital cloud captures every whisper. Yet this case proves that a determined individual with the right knowledge can still step off the edge of the earth and pull the ladder up behind them. The digital audit trail goes cold because it was designed to do so, leaving behind a blueprint for absolute erasure. Years passed, and the legal machinery eventually had to close the administrative loop on a life that remained unresolved. A judge officially declared the district attorney legally dead, allowing his estate to be settled.
But a legal declaration of death does not solve a missing persons case. The open file remains in the archives, a haunting reminder of the limitations of the justice system when confronted with the beautifully executed vanishing act. The red thread of the destroyed hard drive still anchors this mystery, refusing to let the story fade into obscurity. It is proof that this was not a tragic accident or a random crime of opportunity. It was a choice, executed with chilling precision by a man who understood the weight of evidence better than anyone. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of data recovery and dive teams, lies the truth of what was on that machine.